Hey folks, welcome to another edition and episode of There's Just Something About Kansas City, where we have a conversation about the people, places, and things that make this such a great hidden gem. Although this guy sitting right across me right now is doing his best to make it not so quite a hidden gem. The president and CEO of Union Station, George Guastello. And George, your building, your edifice, your historic, beautiful building has been front and center now since 2015 in a World Series, and then a couple of Super Bowl parades. We just had the NFL draft. The soccer's coming, okay, World Cup. I mean, your building has been front and center to show everybody around the country. I even have my nasty East Coast buddies call me and go, okay, your city looks okay. All right, we'll give you a little concession here, but welcome. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
It is so fun to be here with you. You know, we go back so many years.
Oh, yeah.
And you've had a chance to watch Kansas City grow, and you've watched Kansas City change, and it's kind of fun to watch where we were and where we are today. And I think the perfect example of it is Union Station. It's become the visual voice of Kansas City. Think about all those years we worked so hard to get bi-state passed, and then all the challenges that it had. And now, what?
Yeah.
The NFL draft, 54 million watched us and said, hey, Kansas City, it's okay.
Yeah, they used to see an Arrowhead on Sundays.
Right.
Okay, and they're just going, okay, well, that might be a little fun trip, but what else is there to do in Kansas City? Well, there's a lot to do here, that's for sure. But before we start talking about Union Station, a little bit of the past history and where we are and the whole thing, you are a native Kansas Citian, correct?
God, I've been here 63 years.
Gosh, that's
amazing what Botox can do. For you, right?
You look pretty good for 63.
It's not bad.
You know that?
Yeah, well, you took it here. And
Yeah,
there.
right. I got you. So you were born. What part of town were you born and raised in?
You know, I lived in Kansas City. I was born in Kansas City. My mom and dad. My dad was a pharmacist here and started his business in 1937.
Okay.
Wow. So I was born on 5th and Gillis, which is down in the old Columbus Park, and then grew up in South Kansas City. Went to Rockhurst and stayed at UMKC and did my undergraduate and graduate, and then started at Commerce Bank. So I've been here my entire life.
You never left.
I never left.
I'm trying to get these people who have left and then decided to come back. You never even hesitated, did you?
It was just good enough.
Yeah, it was. There's just something about Kansas City,
wasn't
there?
Something about it, and it was fun.
Yeah, and from Rockhurst, of course, you probably had some decisions to make about college. Why did you stay and go to UMKC?
That's a good question. You know, actually, my entire family went there, including my dad, who was the oldest living pharmacist from the Kansas City Pharmacy School in 1937. Wow. But I'm a lucky child. My parents were much older. I was very fortunate, but I think Dad and Mom were somewhere around 47 when they had me. So they opened up the Bible and they went, "Oh, she did it at 107, so it's okay." So the possibility of me counting with my left foot was pretty significant. So I was had a great opportunity, great family, but when you're the baby, I think there's only 25 years between my oldest brother and myself.
Gosh.
And so he always tells the story. Hey, I went into the hospital and the nurse said, "Is that your son?" And he said, "No, it's my brother." Now, it's probably old Italian. I'm sure I'm my brother's son. You know, it's like Succession. There's a story there somewhere.
He could have been your dad.
He is my dad. He's 84 now. I saw him this weekend. I said, "How you doing?" I said, "You're doing okay, buddy. I love you." So, yeah. So, you know, I got the great opportunity to, you know, to be with my family.
What kind of dynamic was that?
Out of control.
I can't.
Yeah, I had two older brothers and an older sister, so it's like having three fathers and another mother. So we were a great old Italian family, you know. So we lived here, and life is good. So
the amazing part for me is like people get like that, and they'll have a child maybe 5 or 6 years younger than the next oldest. Mm-hmm. And they'll go, we didn't care anymore. We're so tired. We're done. I can't imagine your mother and father having you at that age and then going.
Well, they had worried about everybody else. And so when they got to me and said, "Here, have a cigarette and some whiskey." And that was 8 years old. So God love him. But Dad's life cut short. He died at 102.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. He wanted to live 105. He was really pissed.
You-
But he was there for the 100th anniversary of Union Station. He goes, I was here. I said, no, Dad. He says, yeah, no, I was there. I said, Dad, you weren't born yet. He said, well, I was conceived.
It was close.
It was close. He was conceived, but he thought it was his.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Oh,
So
I'm sure he
very
did.
fortunate.
I'm sure he did.
It was fun to let him see that.
And so just everybody, did they all stay?
Everybody
close?
stayed.
Everybody stayed.
Yeah, it's like, don't go fly here, which is great. They had believed in education. It was wonderful, and what better place to live?
Oh yeah,
Right.
exactly. Growing up there, and you've been here for that period of time. I've been here since 1981,
Right.
and several opportunities to leave town
Right.
at that point, and you start to weigh your options. Just go. I could have gone back to my old hometown of Pittsburgh, or Philadelphia, where I went to school. But as all my buddies told me, in 3 years they're going to hate you. Okay, so just I think you're in a great place. In Kansas City, accepted myself and my family, and that was the biggest. That was the biggest thing for me. So
It's a community, right?
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's more of a small town than it is a big city.
It is. Everybody
Yeah.
knows everybody. Everybody knows every business. And you and I have had the opportunity to see every major newscaster grow old. I mean, Phil Witt's no more 12 years old.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Gosh, we always
I'm gonna
look
give
so
him credit,
good.
but he still looks great. But he
Yeah.
started at 12.
Yeah, he
and
did.
Larry Moore's still alive. I mean,
right.
come
And
on.
Pearson?
Oh, and Pearson, they're all here.
Yeah,
right. We've seen it
absolutely.
all.
And they're all still here.
They're all still here and they're all alive. And that's the interesting part. It's all about connections in Kansas City. And it's not back connections. It's just knowing who people are, what they've done, who are their families, and build on that relationship and build on trust. And I think that's what makes Kansas City so unique.
Yeah, and
that's
I'm sure
kinda
you
fun.
see this as well, just not only with yourself, but with your siblings and your kids or whatever. That my kids have such great relationships with the kids they grew up with,
Right.
And they are never going to leave.
No.
And I think that is part of the reason. I couldn't wait to get out of town. Okay, for several reasons, but we'll just leave it at that. But I couldn't wait to get out of there. But
We're going to change the subject.
I had to
something
leave,
else.
but the deal is that is it too.
Yeah.
I just spent a week with a bunch of my friends that I grew up with in Pittsburgh and back at school that I play football with and the whole deal, and we just talk about it. And they always ask me, they always go, "What? How come you never left? How come you never came back here?" And I said, "Well, there's just something about Kansas City." So. Yeah.
Once in Pittsburgh, never more.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Once
a
in
year.
Philly.
Right. Oh, forget
Booing
Philly.
Center.
I mean,
Cheesesteaks aren't that good
No.
to stay there for your entire life.
yeah, and don't ever stay up to the middle of the night at 2:00 in the morning and go get those pretzels.
No.
I did that once, but I'm still here.
That's right. You're
Right.
exactly right. Let's talk a little bit about Union Station.
Yeah.
Let's go back over the history a little bit. I think that people maybe miss out. They see the building. They've heard about the bullet holes, which we'll talk about, of course. But I don't think a whole lot of people realize it wasn't there. The first Union Station was not there. The first, and it wasn't, I don't even know, it was called Union Depot. And it was down in the West Bottoms. And that's where they offloaded the cattle and the freight was getting offloaded there and the passenger service started there. And that was in the 1840s or 50s. It was amazing. Yeah.
The old Union Depot was down at the American Royal area when you and I worked together all those years with the American Royal to do the barbecue. But that's where the original Union Depot was. You've done your homework very well. But when you think about Kansas City, we were a cattle town. Livestock, that's where it all came out down from the West Bottoms. And that's where the depot was, Union Depot at the time, what it was called. And you can go down and find but everything in Kansas City is tied to water. It's tied to the flood.
Yes.
And you can never control
1903.
them. Right. You can never control the flood. And the Missouri River, and it flooded in 1903, destroyed it. So then the city had to come together and make a decision on where in the heck to put this transit station. And there was a lot of behind-the-scenes working.
No, that would never happen here.
Yeah, and there's a great 100-year-old story history exhibition at Union Station. It's free, and you kind of learn about it. So you can learn about that, and then you learn about what made Kansas City. And at the time, it was all in the cattle industry, and it was all on freight, right? So the cattle were sold in Missouri and then shipped across that bridge that's now going to be renovated to
Right.
Kansas, which was a free state, and that's where the packing plants were. So that's all what happened, and all the money came in, and all the information, all the major economic development was at that time. Then the flood came, destroyed it, and they had to make a decision on where they needed to go. So when they did it, 12 railroad companies came together. and they created Union Station out of a union. Because at the time, most of them, they had the Santa Fe Station or the Burlington Northern Station. They all came together and owned this edifice, right? It's 850,000 square feet, 17 acres, more acreage at that time. It was, at a time, the third largest operating train station in the United States when it was built. And I want you to think about this. There were 150,000 people living in Kansas City at the time. Okay? Very tiny. And they said, we're going to build this thing. We're going to economically implement it. And when you think about it, it cost about $5 million to build.
In those days.
In 5 years. So when you take it back, and then they had to put another $40 million in lines to get it there. And the guy that built it had never built a station in his life.
It was Jarvis Hunt.
Guy, you've done a great job in your homework. You probably went to school with him in Philadelphia
or
Pittsburgh.
Did. Yeah, 1914. Sure, yeah, absolutely, I did.
I know you were right there. You were doing the first baseball game in lights.
That's it.
So we'll talk about lights, but he never did that before. And when you consider what he had to do and how it was built, he thought about creating a monument, and his idea was, I'm going to create a monument that's going to be on the front of the city, and the city will grow out south, and the city will be behind it, the big part of it.
Right.
And today, that's the way it is. And as Union Station go, so goes Kansas City. So he built this magnificent facility, and at its time, it had a hospital, it had jewelry stores, it had a police station, monstrous operation. But they paid 150,000 people decided to build that. When you're thinking about what we just built to have a new terminal out at the airport, multi-billion dollars, and it's still here. And it changed us forever. We're still the second busiest freight operation, and now we're the second largest operating train station in the United States, next to
Indianapolis? No. New York?
Indianapolis. Was that even a city at the time?
New York.
It's Grand Central Station.
Grand Central Station.
But you know how we did that? Because they tore down another train station in New York called Penn Central. And when they tore down Penn Central, that fabulous, beautiful-looking Madison Square Garden, that's it. And they tore down that. And a little piece of information, the top of the railroad station was these magnificent clocks with a giant sculpture. They took them down. We have those in Kansas City. So actually, Penn Central is on Gillum Road, which is now the Boy Scouts fountain. So when you go down there,
oh my gosh, that's
the top of the building. And so there's all this rail history that people really don't need. So don't know. So they need to walk around and experience it.
Yeah.
So when you go there and you see that with all the kids' names inscribed, it was brought to Kansas City, and New York wants it back. Well, that ain't going to happen, right? It's going to stay right here. Cindy, you guys didn't want it, we have it. But it was interesting because that all created the historic preservation. The movement that was created by Jackie Kennedy,
right.
And she went and saved Grand Central, and that's what ended up saving Union Station from the wrecking ball.
Yeah.
So
it was amazing that and all that happened. Yeah, later when your train travel peaked in 1945, right? And I guess they had about almost 680,000 people come through there at that time, and then by 1974. Or by 1973, it was down to like 32,000 from 600. As soon as the airplane came to fruition and the passenger airplane, everybody decided to go fly.
Well, there's two things that really affected rail transportation in the United States, which was really one president, those from Kansas City, better known as Harry Truman. That was his mode of transportation. That was the grand time that more people left Union Station to go to World War II than any place. And we've served every war from World War I all the way to Desert Storm. But Truman was the guy that loved transportation on rail. But then we had another president come in right after him. Who was that?
Roosevelt, right?
No.
I'm sorry.
Before. It's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. He was just before. I apologize.
We're in Kansas.
Eisenhower.
Eisenhower. Exactly right. So I'm going to question you. So Eisenhower came, and he created the interstate highway system.
That's right.
So two of our presidents had the effect of the creation and or the destruction of Union Station.
Yeah.
So once the interstate highway system came through, transportation, airports, we declined. And then we were transporting a significant amount of mail. When you go to Union Station, 3 stories below ground. So there was a massive tunnel system that created all of the mail system that went all over the world, all over the United States. And when you think about it, how did we get 2 Federal Reserves in the state of Missouri? It was because of the commerce. Remember at the days when we used to have Sears or Montgomery Ward's operations. That was what's going on. And then we had all that transportation right from Union Station, and then that all collapsed. And then once Amtrak took over the mail operations, and then that was over. And then they lost the contract in 1972 or 68, somewhere around there, and completely annihilated the operation. That was it.
Yeah, and the other thing about the Truman thing, and then Roosevelt before him, and the presidents before that, they used to stump from trains.
Right.
They had the presidential car at the back, and they'd deliver their speech. They'd go to all the stations and the stops across the country, and just stop and do the quick speech, get back on, the locomotive would take off, and go to the next town, and that was eliminated as well.
Yeah,
so
that was eliminated, and I think when Bobby Kennedy died, they moved his body via train.
Yeah.
And, that was all the strategy. It was a moment in time that really is a day gone by.
Yeah.
And we lost it all.
Yeah, and before we get to the deterioration, things started to go bad. Let's go back to the Union Station massacre and the bullet holes. In 1933, just because you're Italian, I'm sorry.
What are you doing?
You might have a little connection here. I don't know.
I don't know. Hey, I'm legit. My family always been legit. I don't know. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
How yin's doing? How you's doing?
How you doing?
So they're trying to break free Frank Nash, and they have a shootout there at Union Stations. They're going to transport him out to, I think, Leavenworth, right?
Yeah.
He was on his way to Leavenworth, and they kill him in the process. They killed 3 lawmen as well, and I guess that enabled J. Edgar Hoover to pass his deal, where his agents at that time were not armed. They couldn't carry guns, and as soon as that happened, all of the FBI agents then were able to carry a firearm. But about the bullet holes in Union Station, they're still there.
Right. Believe. That's all I'm going to tell you. Okay, you got to believe in the
George, you got to
believe in the story. Timothy,
everybody
put your fingers in his hands. Believe, Timothy. All right, so here's the story. I wasn't there, but I want you to think about this. Second busiest train station in the United States, and a planned attack on American soil, the first terrorist attack.
Right.
In a public building. Can you imagine going into KCI with guns and starting shooting?
Right, to break some guy free who's in handcuffs.
Right. So that's what happened. And you're right. There was no FBI at the time. They were federal agents. They were not allowed to carry guns. But there's some interesting stuff. There's some interesting redacted, the favorite story, documents about actually what happened. And J. Edgar Hoover utilized that to ensure that federal agents started to carry guns. So he used that whole experience as a way to get Congress to pass it. So that's a real interesting story, and it was horrible what individuals lost their lives there, people that took care of us. But when you start to study some of the documents, there are some books out there that say, in actuality, it was the people in the car that killed the FBI agents in the front because they had a gun in the back. So it's an interesting story, but another piece of history. And yes, people believe that there are bullet holes in the granite that have chips in it. But when you study it, the bullet holes from the pictures, the front window blew out from the inside. So there was no glass on the inside. It was only on the outside. So figure that out. And also it was in the middle of the parking lot, way out front. So if the bullet holes did there, but come down, put your finger in the hole and believe. Okay. I'm not saying it.
You just glossed right over that one.
Yeah, I did.
Now they all want to come down and see. Of course, if you're shooting at the building at Frank Nash before he gets on the train, the window would have been imploded the other way.
Correct.
Okay,
right.
So instead of are there bullet holes on the inside of Union Station?
Conspiracy theory and come down and experience.
This is just.
But we're telling the story. That's what Union Station's all about.
It is.
We preserve the stories of those individuals as well as people that just walked through the building. Can you imagine the stories of people leaving? Think about Henry Block. Henry Block's mother left him off at the front door of Union Station, kissed him goodbye, and said, "See you later." And he went to go defend the United States against the Nazis.
Yeah, not knowing if you'd ever see them again.
Ever come
all
back.
those last hugs and kisses and tears. And all those things through the front of Union
And that
Station.
played through Henry Block's mind. That's why the fountain is there, because he never wanted to forget that moment. And so his spirit lives in front of the building. So I think those are the people in Kansas City that believe and understand the memories and why it's so important to tell those memories. And I think that's why we started all this conversation. Why people stay here, because it's those talks, it's those connections.
Right, and I also think too. I think that propelled people when it came to we're not getting any people through here. Amtrak actually, because the building started to deteriorate so bad, had to move out to the AM Shack. They used to call it the AM Shack outside,
I'm
right?
Impressed.
And they wouldn't even go inside because I guess the walls are falling down, the ceiling, plaster's coming off, and the whole thing. It became a little dangerous. And then there was maybe we should tear it down, not even build another Union Station there, just build something else in its place instead of renovating it. So talk about how that all came about and what happened to get that all renovated at that point.
Well, you set it up very clearly. It became, as I indicated to you, the front of our building. It became the visual voice, or what we've become the visual voice of our community today. But it was also becoming a visual voice of failure. So there was a newspaper at the time called the Kansas City Star. It had a lot of power. And the writer said, until you remove Union Station from the edifice of the city, you will always be considered a loser, and that's it. Now, he doesn't have a job anymore, and that company that's there has an edifice that's got wood all over the glass that doesn't even produce it anymore. Not to be negative. So in actuality, the people did not want the Henry Blocks and the normal men and women's memories to be forgotten.
Right.
So you're right. The ceiling was collapsing. There was a giant tennis bubble inside the building that you would enter because the ceiling was falling in, and there was only one restaurant. You know the name of the restaurant that was always in operation still there?
Was it Pure Ponds?
No.
Oh.
And it would have been the Lobster Pot.
Oh,
so what better way to go in Kansas
I'm
City?
getting about a 60 on this exam.
That's okay. I'm doing all right. No one was living there. So
right.
When you think about a great lobster in the Midwest, where are you thinking? Union Station. But it had the big red door, and man, you went in there, all you could eat. Don't know where those lobsters came from.
They come from the Missouri River.
Right. And the ceiling's falling in. The place is a mess. And and then finally, civic leaders came together, and it was a very long fight. There was a beautiful building behind us from a Canadian company that wanted to take over Union Station, and they owned it, and we were going to develop into something like St. Louis, that really monument in St. Louis of their train station that went into bankruptcy. But we didn't do that, and thanks to Mayor Cleaver at the time, Henry Block, and Mr. Hall, they all came together and came up with a strategy. And Jack Kraft and Steve Rose put together a 1/8 cent sales tax to save the building. So the building sat dormant for 10 years.
Yeah. I think from at least 88 to 96 before you passed it. And
Right.
it was dormant even longer than that, but
Right.
that's when you ended up passing the bi-state, right?
That's the bi-state tax that was created. And they came up with they hired all these ideas and all these people. And the idea was to create a modern science center, and then restore Union Station to the quality that it was. And I would say to you, it was the single best economic development tool in Kansas City because 3 counties had to pass it. But it was a really interesting piece. We were talking a little bit earlier about politics. But it never would happen today where there was legislation in the state of Missouri that was passed, and the exact same legislation in the state of Kansas were passed. Identical words. Never would have happened. Right. And then it had to be codified and ratified by the U.S. Congress. Because you're thinking about it, it's going to be taxation without representation because
on both
people,
sides
on
of
both
state
lines, right? So people
right.
in Johnson County were paying for this. So, so $117 million was raised, $100 million of private money was raised, and about $20 to $30 million of $50 million in federal. So $265 million was put together at this one time. And when you think about it, they had to pass it, and Jack Kraft at the time, and I was at the chamber at the time, said it was the best political candidate he ever had to work on, because it was absolutely beautiful and it didn't say or open its mouth at any time. And it passed.
Did not have a microphone.
Did not have a microphone and couldn't speak. So it looked great. So the tax passed in 3 counties that happened. And then that raised $117 million. And I like to remind people of this. It worked at the time. Today, well over $500 million of private investments happen around it. But were you here in town when it passed in 1976?
Oh yes,
Yes, right.
No.
Okay. Do you remember? Do you still have the car that you bought in 1996?
I'm not sure if that was my Edsel or no, I'm not sure.
You still own your underwear that you bought?
No, I do not.
Right, but you know what? You do own Union Station.
Yeah.
So that little sales tax restored the building. Now that was it. We never received a nickel after that. So
Which is amazing in its own right.
Right.
After
No
that,
one understands that we operate Union Station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on earned income,
right.
not on tax dollars.
Right.
And so it's a unique thing, but it worked. So I would say to you, it was the best economic development tool in the history of Kansas City for $117 million for people in Kansas and Missouri to save that building, to make it look beautiful. And then all that caused tons of private investment over the years then. There was no Sprint Center. That
Right.
caused the downtown redevelopment. There was no Liberty Memorial.
Right.
There was no IRS. There was no Federal Reserve. So best economic development tool. The worst business model in the world because they said, we're going to do this and a science center is going to be able to raise enough money to pay for the operation. So that dog didn't hunt.
No.
So we went through about 10 years of some really challenging times. I wasn't there, 5 presidents in and out. And then we developed the strategy. And that's where we are today.
Okay, so when you came up through your career,
Yeah.
were you looking for something like this to be the president and CEO of? Was this like something like, I know how people start out in their careers and they're doing this, that, and everything, and all of a sudden this opportunity arises from all the other things that we've done in our past. Did it ever cross your mind that you would end up being the president and CEO of Union Station?
I was going through the farm system. So, I spent 10 years of my life. Well, I spent early part of my life working as a commercial lender and a banker. So I understood
Right.
that side of it. And then I decided that I wanted to do something to give back to the community and be a civic entrepreneur. So I started at the chamber. And so I was working at the Greater Kansas City Chamber when we passed this bi-state. And I was doing entrepreneurial stuff. So that gave me my political background and my understanding of civic community. And then I went to Starlight and built
Right.
the new Starlight Theater.
Right.
So that gave me the entertainment side. So any organization I worked for was either 50 years and older. And then I went down to the American Royal. So I learned more about, I don't know what I learned there, about barbecue and operations.
How to party.
How to party,
Yes, how to party.
And how to ride on a horse every night into a rodeo. But that's the background I needed to run the station. But no, so I knew people. I had a good track record, and it was 2008, and the station had really become challenged. They had blown through about $20 million of their endowment. They had no endowment. They were $10 million in debt. They were borrowing to pay for payroll.
So at that point, you're looking at it could go away again.
It was
the same
one
thing
step
that
on
happened
bankruptcy.
before could end up revisiting itself and happening
Right.
again. History could repeat itself.
Right. It was one step to bankruptcy. Bankruptcy was not an option because it's a not-for-profit, so you're not going to have to reiterate to get tax dollars.
Right.
I mean, to get a tax benefit. So at the time, I was here in Kansas City, and Bob Rainier, one of the history guys that had been a great supporter of mine, and Lee Darrow who was a very dear friend of mine and gave me my career at Worlds of Fun when I did stand-up comedy, and picked up the phone and said, hey, we're looking. And I said, well, I'm interviewing to be the head of the where was I interviewing? It was the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce, and I was just getting back into. My mom had passed away, and I had taken a year off, so I was heading to Lawrence, and I got this phone call after the interview, and I was driving back, and I went, "Oh, Lawrence is not for me," but then and Lee said, "We have this opportunity," and I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Hey, I'm just getting ready to pull into my rehab." Situation because of the drug problems that I had, because only somebody that had to be on intravenous drug use would have taken a job. Oh, sure, $20 million you're in debt, no problem. I'll be able to come fix it. And then the dearest friend of mine was Mike Haverty, and who ran the Kansas City Southern, and had been a great supporter of myself at the American Royal,
and a railroad man, heart and soul.
And he did not want his station to go under on his watch, and he was the chairman. And he said, "Would you consider this?" And I spent about 3-4 months looking at it. And then in 2008, I said yes.
Yeah, you thought, oh, this is either going to work or I'm going back to stand-up comics.
Right, I'm going to say, you can't get any worse, right? And so somebody said, well, why'd you take it? I said, well, what's going to happen? I mean, I can't go any farther. I mean,
I'm just coming out of drug rehab.
I'm just coming out of drug rehab. And that's why not. So it's like, oh, God, I hope nobody's on there listening to me thinking I'm on drug rehab. I was never on drug rehab. I was just really stupid to take the job. But actually, it was the best decision in my life because it couldn't go anywhere else. But I had a great board. And so we set up a plan to turn the station around.
And so when you first went to that first board meeting, and were you just getting ideas, or did people have ideas? Did you have all the ideas? Who had the ideas of, the planetarium and the stage and the cinema and now the restaurants that we don't have a lobster pot anymore, we got beer ponds? And whose idea was, we're going to put this all back in here, or well, they were there. This station.
Well, it was urban renewal. We knew what we needed. We had all these pieces, but none of them they were just losing tons of money.
Right.
So you need to just step back. So we stepped back, and I remember sitting in Bob Ranier's office with Mike Haverty, and they said, "This can be really something special." And I said, "Yeah," and they said, "Here, this is a blank piece of paper.
Wow.
Now just create it." And come up with a strategy and structure. And the first structure was it was really difficult. We had to refocus everything, and we had nearly 350 employees when we opened.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can imagine the cash roll. And so I had to make some really difficult personal decisions, and had to make some serious cuts. There's only 50 of us now that run that place. And the most well-renowned science center. Science City was a challenge. It didn't have any investment. So we started looking at it, and some of the pieces, as you say, well, how did you prepare for that? Some of the pieces made some sense. So I'd worked at the chamber for a long time, and 10 years, and I heard that they were looking to move. So I said, well, wait a minute. We got about 150,000 square feet of empty space. We had a $1.5 million electric utility bill. Okay, now how in the world are we going to pay for this? And no one's going to give you any money, right? Why would they give you any money? Because you already took the money.
Squandered it.
And you squandered it. And so my reputation was, hey, we'll fix this on our own, and when it's time, we'll come back to you. And that's what's happened. So we developed this strategy of saying, what is the most beautiful building in Kansas City, and would you want to have your icon there? And that started the process. So we started, and we were able to land the Greater Kansas City Chamber, then the Kansas City Area Development Council, and those strategies were there to bring the right people into the station.
Exactly.
And what I mean by that, they could see it.
And they were going to help you anyway, because now it's the Kansas City Chamber, and what are they doing? They're promoting Kansas City. So what better place to be than in Union Station in our building? Right. This is perfect.
Right, yeah, and it goes back to our days as, understanding the media. The biggest issue was you need to earn media presence. So the real question that we had to do was to get the name out that it wasn't a failure. So think about this. Every time the chamber had an event, congressman, anyone, it was always XYZ at the Chamber of Commerce at Union Station.
Exactly.
So that happened. Then we went and got the election board, so that every time there was an election, we're going live from
Right. We have to go into Union Station
to
interview
do
these
the
people.
number. So media started building.
And where do you do live shot? Outside in front of the building.
All the time. So because how'd you do that? It's
Yeah.
really simple. And then, the media starts having challenges. So we became the opportunity to say, hey, we got this story, we got that story, social media. So that started to build it. And then we knew if we got that organized, then we had to look at the 10 different business units that we had. And one of those was the issue of the Science City. So we had to re-emerge that. A consultant told us we need to close it down, rebrand it, and put $30 million into it. We said, that's not going to happen. So we created an opportunity and went to reimagine Science City to focus on STEM education in the 5 areas and made it fun. And thanks to Burns and McDonald, they came and saw this at the time.
Right.
And Greg Graves and Ray Kowalik said, okay, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to invest. So we always want to run the organization on, who are our customers, what do they want, when do they want it, where do they want it, at what cost? If we answer those questions every time, we're successful. So the leasing is working, and then we started moving to fix the Science Center, and Burns and McDonald came in and said, okay, we want to create this battle of the brains. So we went to our customers, which are kids.
Yeah.
And we said, hey, would you
Perfect.
create the next exhibition in Science City? And it became a competition. And the Burns and McDonald said, if you win, we will build that $1 million idea. And then it became an Olympics, and 800 schools now vie for that.
Yes.
And that's how that happened. So Science City started to grow. And then the big part of it was we had a 20,000 square foot touring exhibition space. And we built the model on reducing expenditures everywhere we could. And I would sign, when I first got there, I approved every check. I looked at every check and I signed every check. So it was that type. And then walk through toilet paper orders, you name it, it was on the ground.
You're a bean counter at that point, right?
I was a bean counter, but watching what was going on.
Got you,
So
sure.
we did that. And we then said, okay, if we run our business on zero-based budgeting, that'll be okay. And then we looked at touring exhibitions. And we did a dino exhibit. Right immediately when we got there, made a significant amount of money. And then we said, okay, no matter what happens in the touring exhibitions, we would not budget for it. If it was successful, we'd take all that money and put it back in the building.
Wow.
If it wasn't a loss, God, we were not going to be hurt. So lo and behold, found an exhibition called Diana.
Yep.
And it was during a lot of just lucky stuff. And we put Diana up.
Well, well-planned luck.
It was well planned. We knew that the son was going to get married, but we didn't realize that everybody was going to love about it.
That's right.
So we had 102,999 women and one man that came to this exhibition, okay?
Was that guy you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was right there crying with him. Oh, he sewed that dress. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so it went out of control, and we used the media for that. And so the son got married, and we came up with ideas such as, okay, if you're here, the people's princess in the people's house, to get publicity, we said, okay, on the day of the wedding, we will open up at midnight, and you can come see the exhibition for free till 5 o'clock. But then at 5 o'clock, we've got to stop because we all must watch the wedding and respect her. And she was watching over it. So we did that. And on that day, we had 4,550 people. Oprah wanted the dress. We leaked it that said, no, you can't have it. And so we said no to Oprah.
Perfect.
All of it
no
worked.
to Oprah.
We said no to Oprah. I said, how can the people's house and the people's princess give it to you, Oprah?
Yeah.
So that worked, and the rest is history. And we just used that media,
Yeah.
The Today Show went live. So it's just all that process. And that started working quite well. And it did very well. And then we were able to get Titanic. Then we were able to get King Tut. And it built our international reputation.
Yes.
All those successes.
Dead Sea Scrolls.
All of that went into the operation, the organization, to restore the building and maintain it. Yeah. So we were never going out and asking for anybody's money. And we didn't go out to any of the taxpayers to say, hey, this is your place. And they started to get brought. And then that started working, and we put the lights up on the building, which was a shtick, which was for the All-Star game. And we knew that the blimp would fly over Kansas City, and we said, I want to be on that. We want to be that shot. And we would go, oh, look at that. So we went to a gentleman by the name of Benny Lee 4 weeks before, and we said, Benny, you create LED lights. You donate these LED lights, and I promise you, you're going to be all over the world on every television station, and it'll be in your brochure. And
Yeah.
Benny gave us the blue light, gave us the LED lights. We installed them, and what happened? For the game, we lit it up blue. We were all over, and that started
That
the
started
process.
everything.
Everything.
Didn't it?
Now we're lighting for everything and unique stuff. And then came the Royals.
Yeah.
Right. So we were out of financial trouble. We have no debt now. We owe no one, and we're cash flowing on our own. And then we put in this little thing called a preservation fund tax, preservation fee. So when you come to Union Station, every exhibit that you pay, you don't pay any taxes. 10% of that is additional. All of that money goes into a reserve account that helps us maintain the building.
Maintain the building, yeah, which was
so
really
parking,
smart.
and that's it. And now people look at it and they go, "Oh wow!" So so when things happen, the community, everybody looks to Union Station now for a statement.
Yeah.
So when we're very lucky, but it's all showmanship.
And some of it was the emergence of these teams that we have here. The Royals in 14 and 15.
Right.
Okay, they win the World. And then you turn around, the Chiefs all of a sudden go crazy. They got Patrick Mahomes, go crazy, 2 Super Bowl parades.
Right.
That inspires not only Arrowhead Stadium being seen on national television when it is seen for all these games, the big games on Thursday night
and where are they?
Monday night and Sunday night, they're all in Kansas City. And then the next thing you know, they win 2 Super Bowls and they have this parade in front of this building that's all red and lit up. Right. And they have 300,000 people sitting out there. And you gave me an interesting fact about the draft and then the NFL draft. How did you go from, and I know it was a slam dunk that if they're going to have these parades, they're going to come down the way they come.
No, it wasn't. Trust me.
And it
I
wasn't
fought
a slam
really
dunk?
hard. No, it was going to go to the Sprint Center and
stop?
and the Power and Light. And don't ever put this poor Italian up there. He went and made sure it got. Oh, you can't do that. But it all tied to the strategy. I always wanted to be a newscaster, so
you always wanted to be a stand-up comedian,
right? And a stand-up, and
this
is. I'm sure everybody's not standing up; they're getting off their computers listening to this.
I don't think
But you're
so.
right; it was all about that. But remember, we knew that when they came over to film the Chiefs games, they had to do other stuff. So we'd always watch and say, "Okay, they're going to go into the community. Boom, Christmas tree there." There's the Christmas tree during the time, during the games. That gets us free publicity, right? That helps us build our credibility.
Shot.
Right. And the red building, and then all of that is done to create excitement and to build our brand.
Right.
And to build the city's brand. So we would use that. For example, when Notre Dame burned, we lit the building the colors of the French flag. Why? Because I wanted to be just like the Eiffel Tower, or just like. That's how we did it. So we started to build that and build it into structure. Every news station has Union Station on the back now. Yeah. So if you watch the Mahomes quarterback one last night, the whole piece has got the front of Union Station with the flags and the building on there.
Right.
That's our idea. Okay,
and it's number 1 on Netflix,
right? It's not that, but I mean the picture of the building is our idea. It's just making it iconic.
Yeah.
And so yes, the Royals took us off to a whole new level, and that was a scary time.
And once you won that battle to have that parade in 15, and with Union Station involved, or being the backdrop for everything that was happening, then was that battle won for the next 2 championships with the Chiefs? So that was already won. We have this parade route. The police know where to go. We know where to put the barriers up. We know where the people are coming from. We know what to do, and the whole thing. So it was
scary.
Slam dunk.
It was scary, and I have the biggest respect and a dear friend, Kathy Nelson. So we worked interactively together on that strategy, and she's just the best. And we were good friends. I'll text her and say, "Hey, this is what's going on," and she's doing a wonderful job. And so I was very fortunate to go down to pitch for the NFL draft with her. But that was a strategy. But also, we said, sure. We said yes to everything. When you have to say no, it means no. But we say yes. Oh, we're going to do that? Sure, can bring them on down. And I can tell you the day that we did this parade, God love Kathy and O'Neill. And they're dealing with all the other stuff, and we're here at our place. And we had no idea what was going to hit us. We had the security ready to go. But it started to roll. We lost cell phones. We lost landlines, and I'm in this place, and it's packed, and I'm freaking out. But no one was, it was a different thing. It was a Royals experience. It was a family.
It was a celebration. It was the kids were there and the whole thing. That's the whole difference.
And it was so joyful. Mm-hmm. So we did this, and I was telling the marketing, our chief marketing officer, Michael Tritt, I said, okay, we got to monetize this. They're not paying for any of this. We got 50 people. We got to figure this out. But it was all designed to get it right there, right?
Sure.
Because that's if you're a collaborator and you want to support, in the end, it's going to benefit you. So we did this thing, and we had a gentleman by the name of Roy Enman, and everybody's taking pictures of the building. And we put them on the top of the roof. On that day, I climbed at the very top of the peak of the roof and looked down, and I went, oh, my God, what's going to happen? This is the most exciting thing. And remind you, we were getting ready to do our 100th anniversary. Right. So we were building that. So Roy took this picture from the top of the building, which then became the sea of blue.
Right.
Okay, we did that. And Kelly, I'm trying to think of it. Kelly got the radio station guy. It'll come back. But Kelly Urick is a dear friend. So I said, Kelly, I got this picture. And he said, what do you think? He said, well, let me see if I can pitch it. So we pitch it. We sold 2,000 of them on that day.
The panoramics, right?
Of blue.
That you can frame and put up on the wall.
Which we did, right?
Sure.
And it went ballistic. We sold 20,000 of those.
Wow.
At $22. Not asking anybody for money, and it went crazy. So that led us into the Chiefs posters. So we did the Chiefs posters. We did the KU posters. So we're now turning that into operations. We have an ability to press it and go on live.
Yeah.
And I can tell you the first Chiefs parade, everybody was trying to do it. They were trying to get into buildings. We stopped it. So we had the control of it, and that helped us make that. And that started something that causes a memory.
Oh,
and
yes.
Everybody wants it, and they circle it. And I was there at the Royals parade with my dad.
I was right in there somewhere. I was right
with
in
my
that
son,
spot. Yeah.
with my daughter, and they never forgot it. It's just like Henry Block saying, my mom left it off there.
Yeah.
So the memories started to grow. And that's all it is. It may sound opportunistic, it may sound entrepreneurial, but I'm not walking and asking people for tax dollars.
Yeah, right.
We're doing it on our own, and they have that picture. And it becomes a moment, and it's just taken off. Christmas has become crazy. 188,000 people came down last year for selfies, and we weren't hurt by COVID. We became the icon during COVID to bring everybody together. That's where all the civic leaders came, all the mayors came to close the city.
Wow. At
one historic moment, and it was the place that we reopened. So it means something, and we have an amazing team that understands those memories. And we have to create those all the time.
Then we fast forward to the draft, the NFL draft. How difficult was that to land for? I know Kathy Nelson worked on it big, but you were front and center. Told you my friends back east called me and went, wow, that place, all the lights changed for every different team. You even had the Raiders up there. And I said, that's our town. That's our city.
Show business.
Yeah.
Kathy Nelson is the greatest ability to sell and to create and work behind the scenes. And we said yes to everything with the NFL draft. We saw it as what it really was, a television show.
Yeah.
Right? You got to remember, who owns it? Disney. Okay?
Where are they making their money?
Right. ESPN.
Right.
ABC, highest rated show on a Thursday night, advertising revenue.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that, if you understand that, and you understand how to engage in the media, well, that's going to help me in the future with future exhibitions.
Right.
So what do I have now? I've got Spider-Man. Who owns Spider-Man? Disney, right? And there it is. And if they're happy, and we said yes to everything, we knew it was going to be a television show, or at least I thought it was going to be a television show. And Kathy Nelson knew it was going to be monstrous for her to build international reputation. So we said yes to the NFL for everything, but you got to be able to think quickly on your feet. So look, they understand what they're doing, and they have billions of dollars to make their brands and their sponsors happy. Your job is to tag along and
enhance it any way you can.
Right, and make it unique. So we said yes to everything, and a great chief financial officer who spent an entire year on this, Neil did all of this and said yes to everything except when we said no. We said no. So the last piece, and people said, this is what they do. I said, they're multi-billion-dollar corporations. They understand it. If you don't learn from them, why do you think you're smarter? You have an active idea of what's happening in Kansas City and our niche market, but learn from them. So they came up with one last idea, because all I could see when we did this was I wanted the players to come out of the building, historic windows.
Yep.
We had already
have
done
the
it.
guy opening the door for him and the whole deal.
I'll tell you a story about that one. So you had the historic windows. Well, we did a 100th anniversary show where we augmentedly, digitally projected on our building. We did the 100 years of Union Station on Union Station. We had that forever. It won an Emmy. So we showed that to them and said, can you imagine this projected in the windows and all this stuff? And can you imagine them walking out to the Henry Block Fountain, take off and shoot? And they say, oh, this is a great idea. And then they get started coming back and they'll be soaking wet. It's okay. It's a great suit. But they came with the idea, sold them. So they said yes to everything. We said yes to everything. So it was the last minute. I'll tell you the story about the brass doors and the hold the doors. We said, can you imagine the same floors that the presidents walked on will be the same floors that these guys and their mom and dad hug each other on the floor. It's history. So they came through and said, okay, well, out the front door, they said, we want to take the historic bronze doors off. And so they could just walk out. I said, absolutely. I said, but it's historic preservation. We can't do that. It costs us $40,000 a year to hand polish those every year to keep up with historic preservation. Just can't do it. So they started thinking about it and said, well, what if this is a train station? What if we dressed up porters to hold the doors for them? They love it. Oh, it's a great idea. Okay. Now you got to spin it, or you got to engage it. So the story was, who were those people? They were our science educators. Those were people on the floor. So Neil came up with the idea. We dressed them up, and they opened the door. So then the backstory was, teachers hold the door for their students.
Wow.
So again, it's media. You spin it, and we knew every television station needed stories. So we would work with every single television station to give them a unique story behind the scenes, so everybody benefited instead of one. And that's how the door happened. And those people are all over. 54 million people watching them do that.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And you're talking about TV stations. The only draft choice they cared about were the Chiefs. Okay, right. I mean, I don't care who number 1 was or number 12 was. I'm worried about the Chiefs going to trade their draft choice, or what are they going to do? So all the other stories that they have to build up to make it a 1-hour special, whatever, they had to do all the backstories. And those backstories weren't the other teams in the NFL.
No.
Those backstories were what we were doing in this city.
Exactly.
To do it.
And that's what we did. And we gave the NFL and ESPN all those backstories so that they could do the stories. Everything was done because they're thin on staff. So we're doing that story for behind. I hate to tell people this because now all my competition is going to know how we do it. Sure. But we've been doing it for 15 years, so go ahead.
I think you're
we're
way
ready
ahead
to fight.
Of the game, yeah.
So we figured these things out, and as you figure them out, you start to look at the stories and the people, but you also look at the stories behind the scenes of stuff. And there were so many people. Dr. Joe was there on a Saturday night, on Friday night. Joe Wackerly,
right? Mm-hmm.
He was the Chiefs.
Yeah, sure he was.
And then we tell the
story.
story.
Developed the new helmet and everything else.
Well, and he was the one. Dr. Joe was the one that saved all the people's lives.
Yes, at the Skywalks.
At the Skywalks. And there he was. So had to see Joe there, and I've known him for years, but to see him at that glory in front of Union Station for a moment was worth everything in my life. To see Lee Darrow there watching that for somebody that's all it's about. It's those memories that you'll never forget. And that's what happened to Kansas City. And that's how we got to where we are today.
Yeah.
Treating people the way they want to be treated, but never forget what they did for you.
Okay. What are you going to do now for an encore?
I know I got Barbie. Come on. We're
That's
not,
right. You got Barbie, don't you?
No, got Barbie. And she'll be here this week. Don't miss her. We're not done. We've got a lot of things on the fire.
Yeah.
And I'm getting old. I'm 63.
Yeah.
But
I
wouldn't want to give up this opportunity in the world. But you never know what's going to throw at you.
Yeah.
And you got the World Cup.
You got the
coming,
World Cup coming in 26.
And, this city has an opportunity to be proud, and this is we got challenges. But we'll address those challenges like we addressed everything else.
Right.
But we should be proud. And this Kansas City has the image. It has a bad self-image because we don't think of ourselves as something special. We always have to have somebody else tell us about it. Everybody brings guests in to show them now Union Station because they're proud of it. And I always would say, if we're on the New York Times front cover, then everybody in Kansas City thinks we're successful. Not because of that, just somebody else said you were. Yeah. And that was the gig. And this was the biggest one for 54 million people said, Kansas City's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think we're on an upturn. No more brain drain. It'll be a brain gain. We're not going to lose those kids to go somewhere else. They're going to come here. And the numbers are growing of kids looking at searching after college at Kansas City. And that is a big deal. Yeah. So we're going to start seeing those individuals. It won't just be from the small towns that we've been so successful for the agrarian values. Now we're looking at everybody and saying, okay, so I can live at in a hotel, in a really great one-bedroom apartment for $1,400, and let's see, in New York it's $5,000, and I have 3 people. My daughter lives in Manhattan, right?
And we have to be on different shifts because we all share bedrooms,
right? And only one bathroom.
One bathroom.
That's what Friends is all about. But yeah, so that's what's happened to Kansas City. And now the thing that makes Union Station special, it's Kansas City's home for everyone. And if you would have said 15 years ago, you're going to do an exhibition at Union Station on the Holocaust and Auschwitz, and 350,000 people are going to come from 5 countries and 50 states, they'd say, no, you need to go back to your intravenous drug use program that you just got out of. And that's what we did. Yeah. That was before the draft. We had 350,000 people that came to see Auschwitz, more than the 316,000 that showed up for the NFL draft.
Wow.
So think about that. And there are more. Then we came up with Maya for our diverse communities. So diversity, equity, and inclusion that everybody talks about in Kansas City, we don't have a statement. We live it. And that's vitally important. So everyone sees this is their home, and they feel welcome. And when they open up those brown doors, they say, this is my house. I feel welcome. Yeah. And that's important. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. We've got a long way to go.
This is the reason have you in here. It's the reason we decided to do this.
It was really fun talking about it.
There's just something about Kansas City. There really is. And you shouldn't have that chip on your shoulder or wait for somebody else to tell you have a great city.
Yeah.
You have a great city because it's the people, places, and things that just make it what it is, just like Union Station.
It's the people. Think about all the men and women that you worked with on the station, and all the interviews and all the players, and the Derek Thomas, all the situations that happened. Yeah. And that's all it is. It's up here, and it's in the memory, and the memory then goes to your heart. And it just happens to be a city that we have those memories in.
Thanks for coming in.
Oh, this is really fun.
Appreciate it.
This was good. All right. Thank you, my friend. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, George.
Thank you so much.
George Guastello, President and CEO of wonderful Union Station, one of our landmark historic buildings. It is probably the picture of this city right now. So that's it. Thanks, George.
Thank you so much.